What you're about to hear is not fiction, no embellishment, no Hollywood twist. It was the first week of June 1960. Four teenagers, Mela Irmeli Björklund, Anja Tulikimäki, Seppo Antero Boisman, and Niels Gustafsson, set up a tent along the shore of Lake Bodom in southern Finland. The summer air was still, the lake quiet. Nothing suggested what would come next. By morning, three of them were dead, brutally stabbed and bludgeoned while they slept, their tent slashed open from the outside. Only one survived, Niels Gustafsson, with a concussion, facial fractures, and no memory of what truly happened. The Lake Bodom murders shocked the nation and soon became one of Europe's most infamous unsolved crimes. No weapon was ever found, no fingerprints, no conviction. Decades passed, and the lake's surface remained calm. But some say the silence never truly returned. Over the years, hikers, campers, even locals have reported things. Unseen figures in the fog, whispering near the shore, lost items turning up decades later, or not at all. In 2005, a group of amateur filmmakers returned to Lake Bodom to document the legend. They never finished the project. Only fragments of their footage were ever recovered. What happened on that night in 1960 may not have ended there. Lake Bodom lies on the outskirts of Espoo, Finland's second-largest city, just a short distance west of Helsinki. Peaceful, secluded, a place families came to fish, swim, and escape the chaos of the city. By the late 1950s, it had become a favorite retreat for young people, especially during the short but golden Finnish summer. But on the morning of June 5, 1960, its still waters reflected something else entirely: chaos, confusion, and the raw aftermath of a killing that would terrify a nation. Four teenagers, all between 15 and 18 years old, had arrived the day before. Mela Irmeli Björklund, Anja Tulikimäki, Seppo Antero Boisman, and Niels Wilhelm Gustafsson. They were friends, two young couples. They pitched a small green tent at the edge of the lake, away from the crowds. They wanted privacy, a quiet night under the stars. What happened between dusk and dawn has never been conclusively determined. The next morning at around 6 a.m., a group of local boys fishing nearby stumbled upon the scene. What they found was not a peaceful campsite. Three of the teenagers were dead, brutally attacked while they slept. Seppo Boisman and Anja Mäki were discovered inside the tent, stabbed and bludgeoned. Mela Björklund, Niels's girlfriend, had been pulled partially out of the tent. She suffered the most injuries, stabbed multiple times, both in the tent and again after being dragged out. She had defensive wounds. She fought back. Niels Gustafsson was found outside the tent as well, barefoot, bloodied, his jaw broken. He had a fractured skull and heavy bruising, but he was alive, barely. No murder weapon was ever recovered. There were no confirmed eyewitnesses. The tent had been slashed from the outside. Some belongings were missing, others untouched. Police launched a massive investigation, but from the beginning, nothing made sense. Over the years, suspects would come and go. A man named Hans Assmann, a German-born former KGB agent, who showed up at a Helsinki hospital the next morning, covered in blood. He was dismissed. A local maintenance man who later hanged himself in 1969. No conclusive link. And decades later, in 2004, the only survivor, Niels Gustafsson, was arrested and tried for the murders. He was acquitted in 2005. The case remains officially unsolved. But something darker clings to the lake than just an unsolved crime. Long before the 1960 murders, locals spoke of a presence in the woods around Bodominjärvi. Something old, something that watched, a myth whispered from the days of Finnish paganism, of a spirit known as Naked Morsian, the water bride, a cursed entity said to drag the living into the depths during midsummer. Of course, most wrote it off as folklore, but some remember hearing screams by the lake long before the teenagers ever arrived. One elderly resident once told police, in a statement buried in early investigation records, "The lake doesn't like to be disturbed at night, especially when it's warm, especially by lovers." Today, most Finns know the story. They've seen the photos. The grainy black and white images of the ripped tent, the bodies wrapped in plastic sheeting, the blood staining the summer grass. It wasn't just a murder, it was something ritualistic, something not meant to be seen. And for over 60 years, the question remains, who or what killed them? By 2005, the Lake Bodom murders had become legend. The case had gone cold. No convictions, no answers. But a growing corner of the internet, true crime forums, conspiracy blogs, amateur sleuths, kept the story alive, especially after Niels Gustafsson's controversial trial and acquittal that same year. That summer, 5 Finnish college students decided to visit Lake Bodom, not to swim, not to camp, but to document. They were part-time vloggers, self-proclaimed urban explorers, filming content for an obscure YouTube channel focused on unsolved crimes. They joked, filmed selfies, trekked through the woods with handheld cameras and bottled beer. A voice behind the camera says, "Midsummer is perfect for ghost hunting, right?" At first, everything seemed ordinary, peaceful. The sun never really sets in the Finnish midsummer, and the lake was quiet, too quiet maybe. But strange things began to happen. First, subtle, easy to ignore. The audio on their recordings distorted intermittently. Crackles, garbled words, a whisper none of them remembered speaking. At first they laughed it off, blamed bad microphones, humidity, signal bounce. But the whispers got louder. A local they interviewed warned them, not with drama, but with tired certainty. A retired fisherman named Kalevi, who lived in Espoo his whole life. He said, "That place never stopped taking. People vanish. It's quiet now, but it breathes." They found scratches on trees, long, deliberate marks that hadn't been there the day before. They laughed again, said it was wildlife, except they couldn't find any tracks, no birds, no movement in the woods. And then came the dream. One of them, Emilia the youngest, recorded a video log the next morning, pale, trembling, voice hoarse from sleep. She spoke of a dream where a woman stood waist-deep in the water, eyes above the surface, hair floating, watching. They found her tent flap open later that day. Emilia swore she zipped it closed. On the third evening, as dusk settled in, not darkness, just gray midsummer dusk, they spotted a figure across the lake, distant, unmoving. No one had seen it arrive. It didn't wave, didn't walk, just stood. They shouted, no reply. When they turned back minutes later, it was gone. And still they stayed. They were told not to camp there, but the curiosity was too strong. They thought they were chasing shadows, chasing a cold case. But the lake, well, it never forgets. It happened on the 4th night. The group had grown uneasy. They stopped laughing. The footage became shorter, quieter, more handheld, no more posing, just documenting. One of them, Jona Laaksonen, 22, walked off alone with his phone, wanting to film the lakeshore under moonlight. He never came back. They found his phone the next morning, propped against a moss-covered stone, still recording. The battery had died hours earlier. The footage is shaky. Jone walks in silence, water to his left. Then, something moves in the trees. He whispers, "Kuka Ciela? Who's there?" Pause, then, abrupt scream, off camera. There's a scream, high, human, distant. The others run to the shore. They call for him, no response, not even an echo. They comb the area. No blood, no signs of a struggle, only Jona's phone and something carved into the bark of a nearby pine. The word was simple, deep, scored into the wood like with a blade. Palai, beat. It means burn. A single word that had appeared once before, in a police report from 1970, just a few kilometers west of Lake Bodom. A man claimed his dog had been taken by something in the woods. Officers searched the area, found nothing except one tree, marked with the same word. The carvings were dismissed as a prank, Back then, soft scratching sound begins. That night, one of the group, Amelia, started keeping a diary. The last coherent entry reads, quotation mark, "There's something watching. Every time we blink, it gets closer. I can feel it. Behind the tent. It doesn't move when we look, only when we sleep." Sound. Tent flap rustling in the wind. Faint humming, like the lullaby from before. The next segment of footage is in night vision. The quality degrades. Green and black. Grainy shapes. A shape, human-like, passes by the tent. Slow, deliberate. You can just make out lips moving. One word barely audible over the static. The figure stops, turns, looks into the camera, and disappears out of frame. Heartbeat sound begins, slow, dull. No one saw it in real time, only later, reviewing the footage. One missing, one watching, and one night left before midsummer ends. In the days that followed, the remaining 3 campers stopped filming for entertainment. Their footage changed, less structured, more frantic, more afraid. Beat. They started researching the lake's history, not just the 1960 murders, but something older, something recurring. They found 3 more unsolved cases, all summer, all near Lake Bodom. Different decades, different victims, but always in June, always near midsummer, and always no answers. They reached out to anyone who would talk. A local folklorist agreed to meet. She spoke off camera, her voice barely above a whisper. Folklorist, voice soft. Neked Morsian, the bride of the water spirit. It's old, older than Christianity here. They said she drags the impure into the lake during Johannes, the summer solstice. The Nak, a water being from Finnish mythology, was once blamed for drownings and disappearances. But in some regions, legends spoke of his bride, a drowned maiden spirit said to lure victims with her voice and punish those who disturb sacred ground. The vloggers didn't know if they believed it, but something believed in them. They contacted a pair of amateur paranormal investigators based in Helsinki. The 2 arrived, set up equipment, and stayed one night. They left the next morning. One refused to speak on camera again. The other shared only this. Investigator, male, disturbed. I heard it in the tent, a child, singing in Finnish, right next to me, but there was no one there. He slept alone that night. Long pause, rain begins to fall, distant thunder. The next night, another camper vanished. Her name was Celia. They found a trail, not footprints, not drag marks, just blood, from her sleeping bag to the waterline. But the blood didn't go into the lake. It stopped, as if she was lifted. The footage after that point becomes fragmented. Timestamps loop backward. One clip shows sunrise at 2 a.m. Another shows moonlight just minutes later. The environment was shifting. Something in the forest didn't want them to leave. They tried 3 times. Each trail brought them back. Trees where there weren't trees, roads gone, GPS frozen. It was as if the forest was folding in, redirecting them. One of the last videos uploaded, never publicly listed, shows a survivor whispering to the camera, tears on her face, flashlight flickering. Don't answer it. If it calls your name, don't turn around. By now, it was no longer about what happened in 1960, but what had always happened, every summer, every solstice, every time someone dared to look into the water and ask, what lives beneath? They came to document a mystery. They became part of it. There was only one left. His name was Alexei. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. No food, just instant coffee, power bars, and the crushing knowledge that everyone else was gone. I don't think she likes when we film, but I need someone to know. He set up a single static camera inside the tent, a last record, then zipped the door shut and waited. What we see next is hard to explain. Experts later called it sleep paralysis. His body frozen, eyes wide. He begins to tremble, but cannot move. In the corner of the tent, Something begins to move. A shape, female, hair soaked, skin pale, water pooling around her knees, but there is no water inside. Her face is wrong, blurred, as if the camera itself won't focus on it, but her mouth is open and breathing. She inches toward him. He stares. Unable to scream, she leans in close and whispers. Then the footage cuts out. But one more file remained, a short audio log buried in the memory card. Audio only. She's not dead. She's waiting, in the lake, for someone to join her. That's what they all did. That's where they go. After that, nothing. But when investigators reviewed the drone footage from earlier in the day, they noticed something. A shape, not a trick of the light, not an illusion. The lake was watching. And that wasn't all. One by one, they return. Every one of them. The missing period. They never screamed. They never ran. They just stared. There were no footprints, no signs of exit, just the lake and what it keeps. When Finnish authorities responded to the emergency signal, the campsite was already abandoned. No bodies were found, no footprints led away, just a single tent, collapsed inward, torn from the inside. But there was one thing left behind. The footage was real. Police confirmed it. Time-stamped, geo-verified. Forensics found no evidence of tampering. But the people in the video, Alexei, the others, they were never seen again. Lake Bodom is still open to the public. The shoreline is quiet. Locals fish here. Teenagers camp in the same spot. Most leave without incident, but not all. In July of 2023, a young boy fishing with his grandfather found something lodged in the reeds near the southern bank. A second camera, waterlogged, battery dead, but the memory card, intact. Authorities reviewed the footage. What they saw has not been made public, but unofficial sources say the last frame shows the boy himself, standing at the water's edge, a figure behind him. Since then, several people who viewed the footage have reportedly suffered from the same symptoms. Insomnia, auditory hallucinations, nightmares of drowning. They say you can still hear her if you listen long enough. The lullaby, the whisper, the voice from the lake. But that's just a story, right? Watch it if you dare. This footage is still under investigation. Authorities urge the public not to share copies online. If you or someone you know has information on the Lake Bodom tapes, contact Finnish law enforcement. Have you ever seen anything strange at Lake Bodom or heard the lullaby? Leave your story below before it forgets you.